Once data collection has started, you want to keep a track of which enumerators are submitting which forms and when. Now we can do this in Power BI, but actually Comcare has some inbuilt reports that we can use to track our mobile worker activity. So we can find these reports in the Reports tab, same as here. And the first one we'll look at is worker activity. So having landed on the worker activity page, we can select case sharing groups, but we don't have any groups set up yet. Then we can view by particular users or groups again. We can view by a particular case type. And then here we can enter the date range. So I'm going to say for the last 30 days, I want it to return the results of all of my mobile workers. So I'm going to press apply. And here we go. I can see all of my mobile workers. So Amanda Agar, Claire Bader, Ralph Myers, and Tester. I can see the number of forms each of them has submitted in the past month. So 4 for Amanda, 6 for Ralph, and 9 for the Tester account. The average number of forms submitted is actually the average number of forms submitted in the 3 preceding date ranges of the same length. So obviously this doesn't work with monthly periods, but if we were to maybe take the last 7 days, I guess also not, or maybe the last day, the last 2 days, and there we go. So then we have the average number of forms submitted by the Tester account in the preceding 6 days. So I'm just going to put this back to the last 30 days. Okay, this tells us when last did they submit a form. So I can see that Claire Bader has never submitted a form, Amanda submitted a form today, Ralph submitted a form today, and the Tester account, that was 3 days ago. And then here we have case data, so the number of cases created and cases closed. Obviously we're not using case data yet, which is why these are all empty. And the same for case activity. What are the number of active cases assigned to each user? The total number of cases and the percentage of active cases per user. Now there's some kind of cool functionality that in some instances is better than Power BI. And that's particularly, you can save the report. So if you've created a particular report like the last 30 days, you can save it, or a particular user group or whatever. Again, you can save it. You can export this data to Excel. And finally, you can email the reports as well by clicking this button. So I can send it to a particular email address, add some notes about the type of report, and it will send based on the range, the date range that you entered. Then let's look at some of these other monitor worker reports. So the next one is the daily form activity. So I look something like this. I can look per user for each day, how many forms have they submitted. So here, maybe for example, I just want to look at the last 7 days. Okay, so Tester submitted 3 forms on the 10th of July. Nobody was submitting any forms here. Again, 5 forms by Tester. And then later in the week, we can see that Amanda and Ralph have been submitting forms. And again, a lot of the same functionality as with the previous report. And here I can select, for example, a particular user. I can filter date by completion or submission time. So completion time is when they actually finished the survey. Submission time is when they submit it to the server. And again, I have my date range. And there we go. Then the next one is submissions by form. So what you need to do here is you can select a form. So application, module, and form. Filter dates by completion or submission time again. Again, I can select particular mobile workers. So maybe I'm only interested in Ralph and Amanda. Oh. There we go. And then let's do the last 7 days and apply. Okay, so here I can see just for the initial assessment. However, if I want to show all the forms, that's also a possibility. So a list of all the different forms that we have in our system will come up. And in our case, we have just two forms, super simple survey and the initial assessment form. And obviously, we created these two users at a later stage, and they haven't filled out any of these super simple survey forms yet. Okay, next report, form completion time. In this form, we can see the average amount of time that it takes a user to fill out this particular form, so the particular form that we've selected here. And you need to select a form before you can actually view these submission times. So this is very useful because it tells us a lot about the effort put into doing a form. So if you have a form of maybe 100 questions and they're completing it within 5 minutes, like this tester account, you know that there's something dodgy going on. Whereas, this 19 minutes, that might be a bit more realistic. And then again, we have our maximum and minimum times, so shortest and longest times, and then standard deviation also tells us a bit about, well, how consistent are they in these form submissions. Then we're going to just skip case activity because we don't have any cases now yet. Then the next one is form completion versus submission trend. So here we can see the completion time, the submission time, the type of form, who submitted it, and then how long did it take them. So obviously in all of these cases there was access to the internet, but here, for example, we see 1 hour and 16 minutes. That means this form was submitted by the tester, but there was no internet at the time of completion, and only an hour and 16 minutes later were they able to connect to the internet and did the form upload for them. And again, you can filter this by form type and even application type. So it can also be deleted or active applications. Then the next one is worker activity times. So this is basically just a graph, and you get an idea of when are forms mainly being either completed or submitted. And finally, we have the project performance tab. So this is obviously a bit more useful if you have multiple months of data, but some of the statistics that we can see here is so high performance users and low performance users, inactive users, and this is obviously the percentage change from the previous month, so it's not coming up here. We can see how many of our users are active and a high versus low performing user trend. And a lot of this data isn't available because it needs to be it is a multi-monthly report. Again, you can save this one, but this is an example of a report that you can't actually submit by email, so you can't really automate this, unfortunately. And so finally we have the inspect data category. We have two tabs here, submit history and case list. Again, we won't go over the case list because we don't have any cases set up, but in our submit history, what we can do is we can first of all look at the data submitted, and second of all we can actually edit the data that was submitted. So if we know for a fact that somebody has made a mistake, so one of your enumerators completed the forms, submitted it to the server, and then later realized that he used the wrong metric unit, for example, for all of his responses. Well, what we can do is we can click on View Form, which will bring us here. We can check the data that was submitted. And finally, we can then click on Edit this form, which will bring us to this page, and any mistakes that were made, we can change them or correct them. And then resubmit the form with the correct data. And finally, if there's a lot of errors in the form, you might wish to just completely remove the form, and so you can do that by archiving the form using this button, and this will essentially just remove it from any of your exports.